subscribe to the channel, and hit like so you don't miss any new scary stories. The Curse of Shadow Lake. Nestled in the remote wilderness of northern Maine, Shadow Lake was a place of haunting beauty and eerie silence. For years, the locals spoke in hushed tones about the lake's dark past, whispers of disappearances and strange sightings that kept most people away. But for avid fisherman Mark, the allure of the untouched waters was irresistible. One summer, Mark convinced his friends, Tom, Dave, and Lisa, to join him for a weekend fishing trip to Shadow Lake. Despite the warnings, they were excited about the adventure and the prospect of a big catch. The drive to the lake was long and winding, through dense forests that seemed to swallow the road. As they neared the lake, an old man flagged them down. His weathered face was lined with worry. "You're heading to Shadow Lake?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Yeah," Mark replied, "we're going fishing." "Beware the waters," the old man warned. "Once you're out there, it may already be too late." The friends exchanged uneasy glances but laughed it off as the ramblings of a superstitious local. They continued their journey, finally reaching the secluded lake as the sun began to set. They set up camp and soon had their lines cast into the water. The lake was eerily calm, its surface like glass reflecting the darkening sky. As night fell, an unnatural fog rolled in, enveloping them in a thick, suffocating mist. "This is creepy," Lisa said, shivering. "Let's call it a night and get back to the campfire." Reluctantly, the group reeled in their lines and returned to their tents. That night, as they sat around the fire, they heard strange noises coming from the lake. Soft, almost melodic whispers carried on the breeze. "Did you hear that?" Dave asked, his eyes wide. "It's probably just the wind," Tom said, though he didn't sound convinced. They tried to sleep, but the whispers grew louder, transforming into mournful wails. Mark, unable to ignore the call, decided to investigate. He took a flashlight and walked down to the lake's edge. The fog was thicker now, swirling in unnatural patterns. Mark shone his light across the water, and for a moment he thought he saw figures moving beneath the surface. Heart pounding, he leaned closer. Suddenly, a cold, wet hand shot out of the water and grabbed his ankle. Mark screamed, pulling back, but the grip was too strong. His friends rushed out of their tents, horrified to see Mark being dragged towards the lake. "Help me," he shouted, struggling against the unseen force. Tom, Dave, and Lisa grabbed Mark, pulling with all their strength. But as they did, more hands emerged from the water, cold and lifeless, each grasping for them. The friends screamed in terror as the hands pulled harder, their icy grip unyielding. With a final, desperate pull, the hands yanked Mark into the water. The others watched in horror as he disappeared beneath the surface, the lake swallowing him whole. The fog lifted slightly, revealing a ghostly figure standing on the water, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. "We need to get out of here," Lisa sobbed, backing away. As they turned to run, the ghostly figure let out a bone-chilling wail. The water churned violently, and spectral forms began to rise from the depths. The friends ran through the forest, the haunting wails following them. They reached their car and sped away, the lake's foggy shore receding into the distance. But the terror didn't end there. In the rearview mirror, Tom saw the glowing eyes of the ghostly figure staring back at them. They never returned to Shadow Lake, but the nightmares followed them. Mark was never found, and the lake remained a place of fear and mystery. The old man's warning echoed in their minds, a chilling reminder of the curse that lay beneath the still waters of Shadow Lake. Years later, a new group of fishermen arrived, drawn by tales of the lake's untouched beauty. As they cast their lines into the water, the fog began to roll in, and the whispers started anew, ready to claim more souls for the lake's dark embrace. Shadows over the lake. Deep in the woods, far from the noise and bustle of the city, lay a quiet lake that few knew about. Local residents told legends of sinister forces lurking beneath its calm surface, but no one took them seriously. For Michael and his friends, it was the perfect spot for fishing. One weekend, they decided to go there for a few days. Michael, Jason, and Alex, 3 childhood friends, dreamed of big catches and serene evenings by the campfire. They packed tents, fishing gear, and provisions and headed to the lake. Upon arrival, they quickly set up camp and began preparing for fishing. The lake's water seemed calm, but there was something strange about the surrounding silence. Birds didn't sing, and the wind seemed to avoid the lake. The first day passed quietly, but their catch was modest. That night, Michael woke up with a strange feeling. He heard faint whispers coming from the lake. He decided it was just the wind and tried to go back to sleep. The next day, Jason suggested they go to the other side of the lake, where he believed the water was deeper and the fish might be bigger. They packed up and set off in the boat. As they approached the middle of the lake, the atmosphere grew more oppressive. Suddenly, the boat jerked sharply, as if something large had struck it from below. "What was that?" Alex asked, frightened. "Probably just a big fish," Michael replied, trying not to show his worry. However, their fishing gear showed no signs of life. They decided to head back to shore, but then the boat jerked again, this time harder. Michael lost his balance and fell into the water. The water was cold and dark. Michael felt something brush against his leg. He tried to break free, but it grabbed him tighter. Panic seized him, and he started thrashing, trying to escape. His friends tried to help, but their efforts were futile. Michael disappeared beneath the water. Jason and Alex, gripped by terror, managed to reach the shore. They didn't know what to do and decided to go back to town for help. That night, they couldn't sleep, haunted by memories of the eerie whispers and the dark waters of the lake. The next morning, they returned with rescuers, but no one could find Michael. The lake seemed empty and serene. The rescuers said it was just an unfortunate accident, but Jason and Alex knew something sinister lurked in the lake. Back home, they continued to hear strange whispers in their dreams. They never returned to that lake, but the memories of that night haunted them for the rest of their lives. They never discovered what lay beneath the dark waters, but they knew one thing. The shadows over the lake were real, and they never forgot their friend who vanished into its depths. The depths of Dread Lake. In the heart of rural Vermont, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, lay Dread Lake. Despite its picturesque appearance, the lake was infamous for its dark reputation. Locals whispered about strange occurrences and eerie disappearances, warning outsiders to stay away. But for friends Jake, Matt, Emily, and Sarah, the allure of an unexplored fishing spot was too enticing to resist. One crisp October weekend, they packed their gear and set off for Dread Lake. The drive was long and winding, taking them deeper into the wilderness than they had ever ventured before. The trees seemed to close in around them as they neared the lake, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out the sun. As they arrived, the lake greeted them with an unsettling stillness. Its surface was eerily calm, reflecting the overcast sky. They set up their camp near the shore, excited to start their fishing adventure. The air was cool and filled with the scent of pine and damp earth. "This place is perfect," Jake said, unpacking his fishing gear. "We're going to catch some big ones here." As the sun dipped below the horizon, they cast their lines into the water. The lake remained unnaturally silent, the only sound being the occasional splash of a fish jumping in the distance. The hours passed, and they reeled in only a few small catches. "Weird, isn't it?" Matt said, glancing around. "You'd think there'd be more fish in a place like this." "Maybe it's just a slow day," Emily suggested, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. That night, they built a campfire and huddled around it, sharing stories and laughing. As the night grew darker, a thick fog began to roll in from the lake, enveloping their camp in a ghostly shroud. "We should get some sleep," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. "We can try again in the morning." They retreated to their tents, but sleep did not come easily. The fog pressed against the tents, and strange noises seemed to drift in from the lake, soft whispers and faint splashes that grew more insistent as the night wore on. Around midnight, Jake awoke to a chilling sound. It was a low, mournful wail that seemed to rise from the depths of the lake. He crawled out of his tent, flashlight in hand, and made his way to the shore. "Jake, where are you going?" Emily called after him, but he didn't respond. The fog was thicker now, swirling in unnatural patterns. Jake shone his flashlight across the water, its beam piercing the darkness. Suddenly, he saw something moving beneath the surface, dark shapes that twisted and writhed. "Guys, come here!" he shouted, his voice tinged with panic. The others stumbled out of their tents and joined him by the lake. They watched in horror as the dark shapes began to emerge from the water. Figures with hollow eyes and twisted faces, their bodies covered in algae and mud. "Run!" Matt screamed, but it was too late. The figures reached out with skeletal hands, grabbing at their legs and pulling them toward the water. Emily and Sarah managed to break free, but Jake and Matt were dragged into the lake, their screams echoing across the still water. The figures disappeared beneath the surface, taking their prey with them. Emily and Sarah ran through the forest, branches clawing at their clothes and faces. They didn't stop until they reached their car, gasping for breath. They drove away as fast as they could, the haunting wails of Dread Lake fading into the distance. They returned to town and alerted the authorities, but when a search party arrived at the lake, there was no sign of Jake and Matt. The fog had lifted, and the lake's surface was once again calm and serene. Emily and Sarah never spoke of that night again, but they were haunted by nightmares of the twisted figures and the mournful wails. Dread Lake remained a place of mystery and fear, its dark depths holding secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. Years later, the legend of Dread Lake grew, and new visitors arrived, drawn by tales of the eerie, cursed waters. But the lake remained silent, waiting for the next unsuspecting souls to fall into its grasp, forever claiming those who dared to disturb its haunted depths.